Hello there everybody, this is Krista and welcome back to Crochet Witch Tarot. And we are on day 3 of our journey to the Forest of Enchantment. I hope you've all been enjoying if you've been following along. I know I definitely have. I've really been enjoying spending some real dedicated time with this deck since it's such a favorite of mine. So, our day 2 prompts probably seemed like, a lot of majors that we got through, but we went from the Enchanter all the way through to the oldest one, looking at each of those figures as guides, because that's just really what they feel like to me, especially in this deck. So, I will have a link to the last video, maybe. If not, you can easily find it. I'm gonna make a playlist. That's something I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make a playlist so that all of these videos are together in one place. But if that seemed daunting, all it was that for our spread for last week, it was a 5-card spread, each of the positions inspired by one of those majors. So the point of that was to look at each of those archetypes and really get a sense for where we were being guided on this journey. And I'm looking over here because I've still got my reading spread out here so that I can look at it as we go. And for my reading, some really interesting things came up around my ideas about change, my ability to ask for help when I need it, which is not something I'm amazing at. I feel like a lot of us can relate to that. And really just learning to have some trust. Because really when it comes down to it, change is something that is really hard for me. And what was revealed from this reading is that the root of that is just not being able to trust that it can turn out for the best, if that makes sense. Not that I really go around, being a negative Nance all the time. By no means is that the case, but I just get so caught up in that fear around change that it's an anxiety-filled experience rather than being able to reflect and see like, oh, but, here's all the great things that could come from this if I can just trust that things will stabilize again. That's really what it comes down to, is fear out of it not stabilizing again, which is really interesting. But the other thing that was interesting to me around this idea of change is, so I had the Enchanter's Wheel show up in the position for the Enchanter, which I really thought was cool. And so the question surrounding the Enchanter was, what powers am I not using to their fullest potential? And I got the Enchanter's Wheel. And so thinking of the combination of the Enchanter and the Enchanter's Wheel got me thinking about, one, my ability to create, but seeing the wheel in that classic way as kind of that the only constant is change idea, it got me thinking about the power I have to really pivot when I need to. And what I mean by that is a really cool aspect of my ADHD brain is that since my thoughts are always going very quickly, I can really problem solve very quickly. And this is something that really comes up mostly in the workplace. So we call it pivoting, because I work at a small public library, so there's not many of us on staff, so a lot of things kind of are riding on our shoulders sort of thing. There's not this extensive staff where it could be broken up into a couple different people. It's not really the case. And so whenever something doesn't work quite right or doesn't work quite to our vision, I am very good at quickly pivoting to something new or tweaking it just a little bit to make whatever it is that we have work. And that got me thinking of like, well, God, like I am really good at that at work, and it's not anything that causes me stress in those moments or even afterwards. And so something that I will be working on from this reading is bringing this over to my personal life of seeing change as a problem-solving challenge like I'm able to do while I'm at work. Now, of course, that's not going to work across the board, and I don't mean that in a way to ignore my feelings around it, but it'll more be being able to acknowledge the feeling of discomfort in that moment, but then bringing in that strength of mine of being able to pivot and just do something new, figure out what works instead with what I've got. So that's kind of what came about from my reading, which is really neat. Also, the other position I thought was cool with the oldest one, which talked about what lessons have we learned already that can kind of inform this journey, will be good to remember. And I got the Child of Challenges, so this is the Page of Swords in this deck. And this also really fed into that idea of problem solving, because the whole idea of this card is that this child is lost in the woods, but instead of panicking, they're sitting down to just have a good think and trusting that they will figure it out. And I think that's a really cool wrap up of what my personal reading was about. So, on to day number 3. And for day 3, we are moving on to choices with the Lovers. So that is the main way I like to see the Lovers card. I see it as choice, as kind of committing to your ideas, or, it could be someone else, but it's more about the choice you have in that. So for this day, we're going to be making some decisions. So here is our Lovers card. And the spread I have for this, again, it will all be typed below, so don't feel like you need to, write down what I'm saying as I'm going. Question number 1, we have, what have I committed myself to that hasn't or no longer brings me fulfillment? How do I engage with the things that bring me joy? What's blocking me from fully committing to myself and my needs? And how can I better prioritize myself? So, this will be a 4-card spread. I've been using, as you've seen, I've been using the deck for the spreads. You could do whatever you like if you don't happen to have this deck. Or even if you do and just want to use something else, whatever. I'll have it all down below. But that is all for this day, so I'll see you again very soon for day 4.